another show and another session we'll be having with Dr. Raina Khatri. We have been talking about technology in startups. We have been talking about the mindsets. We have been talking about finances and a lot of other things when we think of a startup. We think about the accounting system. We think about the teammates. We think about investors, but we always forget a very vital thing about the safety policies. Yes, and today we are being guided by Dr. Raina Tandon on this basic but very important topic that shouldn't be missed by anybody who is going to set up a startup or is an entrepreneur presently. Please welcome Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon. Okay. And before she starts and takes the charge of this, let me introduce her. Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon is an international acclaimed speaker mentor who has been on various conferences and summits representing India on gender equality, women and child rights, and inclusiveness. She holds double degree in IT as well as in law. She is the founder of Right to Rise, India's first ISO 17024 and 21001 accredited organization, and RKT Foundation, which is catering to training, certifications, compliance, and auditing of various organizations and institutionalize core values of justice, equality, safety, and ethical values at workplace. She is an alumni of EDX, Harvard, USA, in women rights and child psychology under human rights. And she has been felicitated by lots of other certificates, which we will ask Dr. Raina because this list is not going to end up anywhere. Welcome, Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon. Please shower your knowledge about safety policy for startups and MSME at workplaces. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Jalpa ma'am. That was a very warm and very grateful introduction by you. And I must thank in depth to Dr. Praveen Parmar and the entire Vyapaar Jagat team for organizing this. Avni ma'am, Vyapaar Jagat, Ashok sir, Praveen sir, and you, who have been endlessly doing this since yesterday. And I must really say it's not an easy job to be here online with so many entrepreneurs bringing such august company people with lots of knowledge. And thank you very much once more before I start into the topic.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure to have you here.
Okay, so interestingly today, as ma'am has already mentioned to you, the topic we are looking into is more with MSME and SME sector, because Vyapaar Jagat is a platform that talks more on how they can provide the expertise through various specialists for startups and MSMEs to excel in their business. A little peekaboo for all of us to know that today India has close to about 75 million SMEs. And we have 7.9 million micro, small, and medium enterprises as of November 25th, 2022. I'm giving you the statistics, out of which only about 12 million are actually registered. And if you look at micro, small, and medium enterprises, a lot of them fall in the micro segment, and 14% of Asia, and the biggest country that falls under this MSME sector comes from India. So India has a very large segment of startups and MSMEs, and it is the largest segment that comes over Asia. And out of that, I'm saying out of the 95 or 75 million that we have, only 12 million are registered. So it's very sad that even though we have so many startups who started their new businesses, they are not focusing first on registration. They are not focusing more on setting up their structure and policies and systems. And that itself will give us a clarity that it is very important to do that first, because any startup, any MSME, before you even go out and pitch about yourself, you need to be a registered entity, and that becomes the backbone of your entire system. So I just wanted to give you the statistics for you to understand how many of them are still left untapped. Now coming to why we should be focusing on that, on how a structure should be formed. And that is what I said, that today there are various policies, various structures that need to be grown. And why it is important? Because as a startup, apart from an idea, I would like to next talk about my pitch and want investors on board. And growth is the ultimate outcome. So if you want to grow, there has to be a structure and processes. Of course, you need people for growth. Of course, you need a lot of ecosystems for growth. But without any structure, you will not be able to grow in the best way. You will not be able to get funds. You will not be able to show your projections. You will not be able to show how you have your leadership team growing and how you are going to be pitching to Startup India. So along with the quest of ideas, execution, revenue, profit, it is also important to develop these policies, because they are going to be your backbone. And let me tell you, about 85 to 90% of startups have founders who give this as a very low priority. Compliance, structures, policies are something that they don't fall in their bracket. So today we are going to just look up to some of the areas of what a startup or an MSME should be focusing when it comes to his own development. And the first thing is people. A startup can grow with not only an idea and the resources. The revenue, resources, idea is the first stage. But when you have a blueprint in place, you need people to make it grow. You need to implement it. And that's where the importance of people comes into your life. Now with people, obviously the first area that you need to guide is people are going to be there in the ecosystem to help you grow. But a narrow line that you cannot forget is between personal and professional areas that they have, and so many hours of work that they put in, there has to be safety. So all SMEs, without any hitch, the first thing that you should do is, any new age investor is going to invest in your setup only if you have a workplace that is safe, a workplace that is conducive, a workplace that is congenial, a workplace that you love to work in, and without fear. Fear is the biggest thing that we always see in our life. If we are fearful to start, if we are fearful to take our projections ahead, if we have people where we are not comfortable, we are not going to grow as an organization. And leave about diversity, inclusion, and equity. But as an organization, as a team, we cannot grow. So POSH implementation is one act that you should be looking into. The first step is to understand the POSH guidelines, where I, Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon, founder CEO of Right to Rise, specialize into this area of training, awareness, compliances, creating the policies, extending an external member support, and also working in setting up the IC committee so that they can mediate, reconcile, and finally set up the annual report, compliances, and the audits. So when we're looking at this broader aspect of why startups and MSMEs should be doing, when we have people in, we need to bring in people of various genders, various age groups, various sectors, and diversity, inclusion, and equity becomes a very important role. And POSH has a foundation which says, the act itself says Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act for Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition, Redressal. Here we are looking at three different aspects: prevention, prohibition, and redressal. But it's also important that most of us always look at the redressal. अगर कुछ हो गया तो मैं उसको कैसे डील करूंगा, लेकिन अगर कुछ होना क्यों है, अगर हम उसको पहले ही चेक कर लेते हैं that we are setting up an ecosystem, we are setting up a company where we already have a prevention before cure, most of our redressals will be lesser often to be taken care of. I'm not saying it's completely eliminated. I'm saying it is a better place to stay in, and your employees will find your ecosystem a more approachable company to be with. So if you're a new company, if you're a new organization, if you're a new startup, I'm sure the consultation of POSH becomes very important. That's what we do. We are into training, compliance, and consulting, where we tell you how workplace happiness, how workplace safety is important. Also, we take you through the different aspects that an investor on board would scrutinize to see whether these policies are tick marked, like a confidential policy or a new policy that takes care of a zero tolerance policy, or you don't want both the genders of one particular family to be working over different projects. So that's non-dating policy and many other areas. So POSH guidelines becomes a set of step-to-step inclusive policy that you should be taking care for bringing in equality, equity, and inclusion. Now with inclusion, just by setting up just a policy would not actually help. So diversity has to be enforced in different ways, of probably having various events where employees are welcome to bring in their ideas, welcome to put forth what could be done, so that more and more newer visions come into the added vision of the founder. So through Sexual Harassment Act, one myth that most founders carry is that this act is only for women. The act in its name says it is for women at workplace, but that most of the founders do implement gender neutral policies and not only a woman oriented policies, keeping in mind that they want to have both genders and the other genders included, safe. And if there are any issues to be raised, then obviously the committee will welcome them and then take them as per the requirement. Another major challenge, if things are blown up, that if you don't have a structure in place, something's unethically happening, none of your vendors, clients, investors are going to come ahead, and with the poor record that you carry, they're not going to be working with you. So be mindful of grabbing these headlines, drawing the line of where you should be setting up your processes in administration, in HR, in details of what needs to be notified to every employer coming in. Specifically, when you have a talent acquisition team, you're bringing new members, their background checks, their papers are being done. There is a proper implementation step. I'm sure there is a risk that happens even after that. After you are creating a system, also there is possibility that some areas are not being taken care because there are gray areas. In the act itself, not everything is very specified. For example, the act says that all companies have to maintain this as a mandatory compliance. POSH is a non-negotiable compliance. It's a zero tolerance compliance. It has to be followed. All trainings, all awareness have to be done for all employees. But there are organizations where we have people coming and asking us, ma'am, can you show us which section of the act says that all employees have to be covered? And when you're creating rules for your organization, it is
Sorry, ma'am.
possibly to create a culture.
Sorry, ma'am, to interrupt you, but I think your video is not working, and it shows there's some technical issues your side.
Now?
Now it's fine, ma'am. You can continue. Ma'am, can you just
okay, so
yeah.
I'm
No, ma'am, you're not audible, and the video is also stopped. If there is some technical issues your side.
yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely, ma'am.
Okay, so we were talking about the areas that even when we are having our basic systems in place, like we do a POSH awareness, there are certain companies who come back and ask that, the act doesn't mention whether all employees or only women employees or only male employees need to undergo the awareness. And of course, I would just give an answer that if something happens in your organization, it happening to a male, you just can't brush it under the carpet. Same way, if SMEs and startups are not going to take the act seriously, all rules, all organization compliances, all risk compliances, all mandatory rules are to be set for everybody. It is not that if the act doesn't mention it, there are certain areas which are gray, they have not been mentioned. But yet, if we want a better setup, a better ecosystem, a better risk-free environment, and a better leadership so that we have better workplaces, which we call happy workplaces, which we call safe places, then it has to be for all. Yes, I cannot come back to you and say this part of the access all employees. Again, when we are bringing in experts, like we bring in the IC committee, there is a lot of things that has not been mentioned. What is the areas that each member plays a role in? What are the specific requirements for each and every member person who's taken under the IC committee? But there are certain rules that are already listed that these members should have knowledge of the act, should have a background of working with a social organization and understanding women's rights, and various other compliances. So many times as a startup, we should understand that maintaining the compliance is not a misconception, is not a choice, but it's something that we have to mandatorily follow to have an ethical system in place. In reality, only when you have ethics, when you have values and systems and processes in place, will any investor, will a vendor or client want to work with you. So even when we say 10 members and more in your company should maintain this protocol and should follow the compliances, yet even if you're an 8-employee company and you want to approach a consultant like us to understand how it is worked in, because in future you might have people visiting you or you might have more members coming in, then non-compliance is not the key, because if you are non-compliant and if you don't have your systems in place, you will also have a 50,000 rupees fine, which is violating the act. So a lot of business licenses also get cancelled because continuously they are following the non-compliances and not following the regulatory measures. So please do not go with the misconceptions. I will always say developing a good business culture is important as a startup, as an SME, because starting small means starting slow, yet being very powerful in terms of your system in place. So engage with the members, brainstorm with them how to bring in the views, to bring in the inclusiveness. And a lot of relationships are cherished when things are structured from the awareness stage to letting them know what does POSH encompass. Then having a policy which is a gender neutral policy equivalent to all the employees, getting an IC committee in place which is more trained on the act as well as understanding how they need to take care of the aggrieved and the respondent when they are in the areas if suppose a situation arises. How can we get started on the POSH compliance? Yes, of course, one area is that you can reach out to us and we can take you through the entire consultation, but certain measures have to be followed. The first step is to have a zero tolerant POSH policy, and second step is to get all your employees aware. Once your employees are aware, then you know that at least the first step towards stopping any kind of situation on harassment abuse in your organization is a no-no. But I cannot say that one time of awareness will have them always thinking that this is something that you should avoid. No women should be subjected to sexual harassment. So a repeated refresher session of every 3 months, a quarter, or 6 months, or once in a year is what is advised. POSH policy is always replaced by a gender neutral policy. More and more actions can give you clarity on how sexual harassment can be avoided. Apart from that, we always say getting an external member support who is skilled, knowledgeable about the act with the legal aspects as well as the approach towards the woman in case she undergoes the harassment, to support her, to provide her interim relief and the male gender as well. We don't forget them because it's a woman-oriented act. We need to support them also to know that harassment can happen with the same gender or sometimes in the opposite gender as well. So these are some of the things, and I would also say that start small, focus on the safe culture, include all important aspects in fostering the best organization that you can have. And legally setting up an SME is nothing but believing that without compliance, without structure, we are not seriously taken by even the client. External member has to be an external person. Do not start getting your legal person who's already on board for your legal areas. Having a policy to be translated only with regards to POSH is very important. It is not another compliance that is there. It is a very serious, important documentation. And sexual harassment does not happen only when you are physically in contact. So as you and me are there in the virtual mode, we still need to understand, we still need to focus that in hybrid spaces as well, we need to take care of our employees who are traveling across, who are in various cities, various countries. And in the true spirit, if you are an SME here to stay, make it big, and hit the India SME Forum, then let me tell you are at the right platform. Take the compliances and the regulations seriously and be a true organization who will always implement the Vishaka guidelines and stay safe. That's all from me, friends. Let's look at all your ecosystems becoming compliant. If you need any help, do reach out to us. We are Right to Rise, RIGHT, number 2, RISC, and I am Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon, available on LinkedIn and all social medias. Let's close the gender disparity. Let's intentionally work towards safer conditions, better workspaces, and happier sections. Thank you so much for hearing me, and we hope that you get a lot of knowledge from various experts on this beautiful platform. All startup and management people, we are here to stop all retaliation and create a beautiful, authentic, and a safe workplace. Thank you so much for having me here. All over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon. This was really one of the things which would had been out of the mind of people, because throwing a knowledge, throwing a flashlight over this knowledge is more required. It is again, it somewhere holds up your reputation. The reputation of the company can come down also in seconds, within seconds. So educating ourselves over this safety policies is really very important and vital. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your precious knowledge and your precious time for us. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you were here on board with us.
I'm equally thankful, and thank you from the bottom of the heart again to the entire team of Vyapaar, Jagat, and Dr. Praveen Parmar. Thank you for the honor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, doctor. And so, see, this is a kind of subject I believe in the current time as well as in the future, it is more required because the way people have started using technology and the way social media and everything is going, right? So I think this is a need of an hour, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we do have people coming up and asking us on various situations and case studies. But some other time we can pick up some cases and we can say how the situations can be overridden at the same time by knowledge
Yeah.
and by expertise, having the right people in your system who are trained. Because you cannot change people, but you can train them to become compliant and become useful to handling situations that come and override them in the right frame of time before they become something bigger. So I
Absolutely.
wish each one of the founders and every person who's come on your platform, urge them to reach out to Right to Rise and to Dr. Raina Khatri Tandon if they need any help to set up their policies and structures. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, doctor. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.